Behind the California sunshine harmonies and those smooth radio hits, the Eagles were hiding a storm. Did you know that Don Henley and Glenn Frey, the masterminds behind the band, often couldn't stand each other? Today, we're diving into the real story of how creative brilliance, ego, and pressure turned partners into rivals, and why their relationship became one of the most complicated brotherhoods in rock history. It all began in early 1970s Los Angeles. Don Henley, a drummer with a soulful voice, and Glenn Frey, a sharp-eyed guitarist and songwriter, crossed paths. Both were ambitious, both were hungry, and both had something to prove. Together, they formed the Eagles, quickly becoming America's biggest rock band. Henley's perfectionism in lyrics and Frey's instinct for catchy hooks produced a streak of classics. Take It Easy, Desperado, and of course, Hotel California, all carried the fingerprints of this powerful duo. Think of them as the Lennon and McCartney of American rock. But instead of Liverpool charm, you had LA grit. And instead of friendship, you had competition. As the Eagles soared higher, cracks began to show. Henley was obsessed with perfection in the studio. He could spend hours re-recording a single vocal line. Glenn Frey, on the other hand, wanted to control arrangements, decide who sang what, and shape the band's direction. This wasn't just collaboration, it was a constant power struggle. And it only got worse with fame. Touring non-stop drained the band, and arguments erupted over everything. Songwriting credits, who deserved lead vocals, even the band's overall image. By the mid-70s, the world saw a band at the top of the charts. But behind the scenes, it was a battlefield of egos. If you're enjoying this deep dive into rock history, make sure to hit subscribe and join us here at Backstage Tales. Thank you. The breaking point came in 1980. During a benefit show in Long Beach, guitarist Don Felder and Senator Alan Cranston exchanged heated words backstage. Glenn Frey, already on edge, exploded at Felder during the performance. Don Henley backed Frey, but tensions within the band hit nuclear levels. Backstage after the show, Frey and Felder nearly came to blows. Meanwhile, Henley and Frey themselves were constantly clashing, petty insults, late-night screaming matches, and no middle ground. Fans thought they were hearing perfect harmonies. What they didn't know was that behind those microphones were two men who could barely stand to speak to one another. That night symbolized the end. By the close of the tour, the Eagles were finished. Frey refused to even share a stage with Henley. The biggest band in America imploded under the weight of its own success. Years passed. Then, in 1994, the impossible happened. The Eagles reunited for the Hell Freezes Over tour. Henley and Frey worked together again, but it was never the same. They weren't friends, they were business partners. They respected each other's talents, but deep down, the wounds had never fully healed. Glenn Frey once admitted, "We're not exactly the best of friends, but we're not enemies either." And Henley agreed, saying their partnership was built on mutual respect, not affection. In truth, their rivalry never ended. But without it, the Eagles might never have reached legendary heights. The Eagles' sound was born from Henley's voice and Frey's vision, a mix of tension and talent that created timeless music. Their story proves that sometimes, the greatest songs come from the hardest relationships. This has been another story from the heart of rock history. I'm your host, and you've been watching Backstage Tales. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss the stories behind the music. Until next time, keep the spirit of rock alive. God bless.
Hotel California.